With fall here, we're reaching the end game of my 52 book challenge, but I have one problem. I haven't officially assigned each book to their prompt, so we're going to do that today. But if you're new here, my name is Jennifer from Watkins Through Life, and I am on a challenge this year to follow 52 book prompts as well as countless other life prompts throughout the year. The 52 book challenge is a list of prompts put together every year to push readers out of their comfort zone and encourage us to explore more genres and authors than we would normally on our own. Everyone has their own way of tracking their progress, but I'm obsessed with spreadsheets, so of course I found a spreadsheet that someone had created to track every single thing. My current issue is that each book that I've read works for about 2 to 15 of the prompts, and I need to whittle down to which one is actually assigned to each prompt so I know what kind of books I need to read for the rest of the year. So here is the spreadsheet that I've been using. As you can see, I have the book titles across the left-hand side and the prompts across the top, and then I use an X to mark which ones could fit for that prompt. For example, The Inheritance Games features an inheritance, starts with the letter I, is a book with a dedication, has secrets, etc. So my current plan is to start with the books that only fit 2 of the prompts, or to start with the prompts that only have a couple books fitting that category, and to go from there. To help us out, I have put together this visual. It's available on the 52 Book Challenge website. I've just altered it a little bit to be a little bit more compact and work for my purposes. I have all of the book covers down here, and I can drag one by one to the prompts that will work. Alright, so let's see here. If we look right here, Unexpected Stories only fits for one of the prompts. And that prompt is a book by Octavia Butler. So I need to go in here, grab the Unexpected Stories, and drag it to, it looks like prompt 48. All right, then in here, I am going to change that X to a Y. And as you can see, Jo Marie Courtney, who created the spreadsheet, has wonderfully conditioned all of the formatting so that once I put in a Y, it marks that category as green. As I'm looking through, the smallest number of prompts available is 3 or 4. So let's go through this row. This is the number of books that work for each category. It looks like by a Caribbean author. That'll be easy to just plug and chug. This is going to be Clap When You Land. So I'll change that to yes, and then the other X's in the category, I'm just going to change them to like a period because then it won't calculate it in any of these totals, which is helpful. So now we can see that that one is filled, and we need to go ahead and find Clap When You Land, and that is going to be moved to prompt number 17. Continuing along this row, my next category that has one option is Nordic Noir. That looks like it's going to be the darkness. So we will slide it up there. And back to the spreadsheet. It looks like there's only one that I've read that's a Newbery Medal winner so far, and that is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And we are going to put this under prompt number 27. Alrighty there, checking right along. We have 12 options, 2 options, and 1 option. Author with the same name as me. Looks like that's going to be where Inheritance Games is plug and chugged in. I'm going to go through and change all of these X's. I know this seems like a lot of extra work to go through for just like reading books that I love. But you know what? It is the most efficient, so we're sticking with it. And you can already see that it's starting to fill out just a little bit. I am so excited to see what this graphic looks like when all of the little boxes are starting to be filled in. I think it's just going to look so nice. It does look like I have one with script on the spine, and that is The Missing Manuscript of Jane Austen. So let's go ahead and mark that one as a yes. Now, I totally confused what script on the spine meant. I was definitely thinking of it in more terms of cursive on the spine, but script font just really means like a handwriting font. So I could go back through all of the books looking at their spines to see if they have a handwriting font, but that seems like a lot of work when I can just use missing manuscripts. Nice, it looks like we have one more book that is perfectly slotted, and that is going to be set in the city of Dublin, if I remember right. Yes, it is The Pull of the Stars. Not one of my favorite reads of the year, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it's not something I would have picked up if I hadn't been doing the challenge, so it's worth it. Prompt number 47. Ooh, we've got 3 in a row. Now's where it's going to start to be a little bit janky. For example, we'll go with all the 2s next. A title starting with the letter G. There are 2 options. I could do Graceling, or I could do Gallant. Now, Graceling fits for 7 other prompts, whereas Gallant only fits for 4 other prompts. So I'm going to try and just piece in Gallant as the option. And it looks like starting with the letter G is prompt number 3. We have 2 options for starting with the letter H, A House on the Cerulean Sea and Howl's Moving Castle. They both work for 7 other prompts, so I'm just going to randomly say House on the Cerulean Sea, and we'll see how that goes. Oh my goodness, do I not have the cover for House on the Cerulean Sea? Did I somehow miss one? I definitely did, so I guess I'll show you how I do this. I go to Goodreads, and then I search for the book. And then once you open up the book, you'll see the picture and you can right click, open image in new tab. It'll pop up over here and I save the image. Now, of course, when you use that hack of opening it in a new tab, you have to be careful that you're using the images appropriately, that you're not going to abuse the use of said image. But I think since I'm using this to just keep track of the books that I've read, pretty sure the author would be fine with that. And it looks like Published Posthumously has 2 options for me, The Trial and Diary of a Young Girl. I do remember that Unexpected Stories was also published posthumously, but because we've already slotted that into another category and changed it to a period, that allows us to see that now we only have 2 remaining options. Now let's see, The Trial works for 5 other prompts, and Diary of a Young Girl works for 14 other prompts. So let's definitely slot Trial into that category. It looks like Published Posthumously is prompt number 13, and it actually doesn't look like much has changed because the cover is so dang white. That puts Posthumously at green, and we can scroll over to During a War Other Than World War I or World War II. We have Beekeeper of Aleppo and 40 Autumns. Because 40 Autumns works for more prompts than Beekeeper of Aleppo, I will probably just use Beekeeper of Aleppo. Number 18. Let's see. I have 2 options for a banned book, which is The Illustrated Man. You know, I'm not sure if The Illustrated Man was technically ever banned, but it is by Ray Bradbury, who is like a popular author for people to be like, chopping block, none of the above. So I did count that one, as well as Diary of a Young Girl. It has been edited and censored a lot over the years just because of how much she focuses on her development and her growth as a woman. I think that makes me want to do Diary of a Young Girl just because I am 100% sure that this has been banned in the past. All right, we've got Neverwhere, which is written by a comedian, prompt number 40. And we finally get to pull off the top cover of the stack. All right, books on the cover is prompt 49. Now, as we go back through, we'll be able to see that some of these numbers have gotten smaller, and that's because we've used some of those books for other prompts. So, for example, now City or Country in the name title is down to 2, and we have Incarceron and 40 Autumns, the story of courage and survival on both sides of the Berlin Wall. So it does have Berlin in the title, and if you've read Incarceron, you know that that is the name of the prison or the separate world dimension. However, let's go ahead and go with the more literal interpretation, shall we? City or country name in the title is number 7. And I guess we move on to 3 options for the prompt. Title starting with the letter I, we have Illustrated Man, Incarceron, and Into Thin Air. Now, Into Thin Air, I'm actually going to save that one because I think the other prompts that it works for are more difficult to find categories. So that leaves us between Incarceron and Illustrated Man, and I'll just pull a rabbit out of a hat and say Illustrated Man. When I started this challenge, this was by far my favorite book that I had ever read, basically ever. And as I've gone on through this challenge, it's become a little bit more difficult to slot it as my favorite book of the year just because I've read a lot of really good books. Oh, and that looks kind of nice, those colors next to each other. But no, I am not choosing books to fit prompts based on how the covers look next to each other. That seems a little irresponsible to me. And my camera did cut out for a second there, but I did add in Never Let Me Go for prompt number 8 as dystopian fiction, as well as How the Marquis Got His Coat Back for prompt number 19, the typographic cover. Now, if you zoom in, you can really see that there's a lot of text on here. There is a picture of a coat, as well as some background etchings, I guess, but they really are just there to emphasize the text rather than to detract from it. And then I was just debating what to do for takes place in a workplace. We could do the cartographers, Tress of the Emerald Sea, the ship is definitely a workplace, and the library book, obviously the library would be the workplace. In this case, let's go ahead and grab the cartographers just because, I don't know, it wasn't one of my favorite books, so I don't feel particularly partial to where it lands. Ooh, and we can see that this column is really starting to shape up. We've only got one empty one. That might be our first bingo. We just did workplace, so if we go over, we have published by Macmillan. I know that they publish a lot of books, and especially a lot of Sanderson books. They print after the fact, so I'll leave that one till the very, very end, because I know I'll be reading more Sanderson this year. So let's jump over to written in present tense, for which I have 2 options. I have The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and Between the World and Me. Between the World and Me fits for less prompts. I'm going to go ahead and mark it down as that, and this looks to be prompt number 37. Looking at this graphic, it still feels pretty empty, but then when I go over to my spreadsheet, I see so much green. So I guess I'm feeling okay about this progress. I am ready to tackle Enemies to Lovers. I know I could do Graceling or Frugal Wizard's Guide, but let's do Frugal Wizard's Guide. I know I have a lot of fantasy and a lot of Brandon Sanderson, so I think I'm a little bit worried that not all of my Sandersons will fit into the prompts. And I guess on that same line of thinking, using the Sandersons where I can, I will go ahead and fill in the Lost Metal for the last book in a series. Final book in a series is number 39. We've got a nice little cluster going on down here. And I realize that the more I talk, the more southern I'm starting to sound, and no, I am not technically from the South. It's just that I've moved around a lot growing up, so my accent is kind of just a conglomeration of however the heck I want to speak. Alright, let's look at under 300 pages next. We've got Sex Educated, Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and The Alchemist. And for this one, I will go ahead and slot the shortest book that I read, which was Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Now, I'm not gonna lie, before I started recording this, I did go through a little bit and think this through, so I'm not gonna have to reorganize and reshuffle a lot with y'all. I feel like that might be a waste of your time, but I think the next one that makes sense to do is a body positive message. And for this one, I definitely want to use Sex Educated. I feel like it is the most appropriate for the prompt, but also I think the other prompts that it works for have a lot of other options. And we have our first bingo. Congratulations me for the invisible prize. I'm sorry if you can hear my stomach grumbling. I am pregnant, so I'm just hungry all the time now. Let's go ahead and tackle a book I meant to read last year. There's only 2 options. We've got The Alchemist and Howl's Moving Castle. The Alchemist is just one that's been on my to-read list for a while, but the Howl's Moving Castle I actually purchased from Powell's bookstore up in Oregon. It's an absolute gem of a bookstore. Highly recommend making a stop. My book club chose it as a book for about 2 or 3 meetings from now, and I am not complaining because I freaking love this book. Now, if I'm looking at this, a book everyone has read now only has 1 option because we've eliminated so many of the other books from this category. So let's go ahead and do Into Thin Air. There was a while there where this was like the only nonfiction book popping up on my feed, and everybody was talking about it, which I'm happy it's going there because that area is starting to look a little empty. And now let's look at book with a subtitle. We have Fork, the Witch, and the Worm. I'm not sure exactly why I put that as one with a subtitle. I honestly disagree with that. So I'm glad we're looking at that right now because The Alchemist, The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel, is definitely going to have to work for that. And if I remember right, that is the very first prompt. Woohoo! I do know that some people who like to do this prompt every year like to mix it up a little bit and make it a little harder on themselves. And one thing that people do is they read the prompts in order. So they would have to start by reading a book with a subtitle, and then a book featuring inheritance, and then with the letter G. And that sounds way too restrictive to me, but I'm glad that they found a way to keep reading fun. I am a big fan of doing whatever it takes to read more in your life. Ugh, a lot of these have just like giant numbers of prompts that'll work. I mean, I guess we can look at an alliterative title. We have Daughter of Deceit, obviously with the D's, The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm. The W sounds kind of count, and Aurora Rising because of the repeating R's. Even though alliteration is technically the first sound in each word, I think that the Aurora Rising, there's just a lot of R's in there. And then Other Side of the Sky, there's the S's. Because Fork of the Witch and the Worm only works for 4 other prompts, and I just X-nayed it from the subtitle category, I am getting a little nervous that it won't fit, so let's stick it in here. That is going to be prompt number 23. I guess we'll tackle Has an Epilogue, Keeper of Lost Things, And Then There Were None, Journal of Curious Letters, Beyond the End of the World. We'll just do And Then There Were None. Now this is one of the ones that I cheated about and actually did some investigating for if I did this prompt for this one, then what would work for that one and that one and that one, and went through the whole domino effect thing, and I did figure out that And Then There Were None would work best for this. And if you've never read this book, the epilogue is where you get the answers as to who actually committed the crime. So this would be a great solve-along murder mystery to read if you wanted to try and piece together who did it, how they did it, and then read the reveal. for fun. We're so close to getting another bingo. What's prompt number 44? Maybe we can just fill that in right now. Prompt number 44 is a contemporary setting, and that's The Keeper of Lost Things or The Journal of Curious Letters. Let's do Journal of Curious Letters. Yeah, that makes me so happy. I have another bingo. If you've followed me for a couple years, you'll know that last year I did an adventure challenge, and I did like a summer adventure bingo where I had to do different activities to fill out a row or a column, and then I gave myself little rewards. So I do love a good game of bingo. Related to the word murder should be easy enough at this point. We've got Daughter of Deceit and The Lost Apothecary, both of which are like 100% about murder. But let's go ahead and do Lost Apothecary for now. Part of me wants to say I wanted to do Daughter of Deceit for something else, but I'm really not sure what that was at the moment. And you know, since we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and look specifically at Daughter of Deceit and what prompts it will still work for. Okay. It works for a lot of them. So I guess I don't have to be worried about that. But just for memorabilia's sake, I really want this to work for secondhand book because it is one that was passed down to me from my grandparents. For includes a funeral, Keeper of Lost Things works for 5 of the prompts, but a lot of those 5 prompts have already been filled in. Like we've already figured out contemporary setting and epilogue, so let's just go ahead and chalk this in before it no longer fits. And I mean, the funeral is like the very beginning of the story, so I feel like that's integral enough to count. So let me go through and just start doing the periods for ones that have already been determined. Graceling looks like it's still good. Ooh, Aurora only has 4 categories left. It is a survival story. It is about siblings. It does have a fashionable character, but let's go ahead and use it for refugee. She's a refugee out of time and out of place. So that is a double whammy. I guess we'll just go top to bottom and just slot it in somewhere. Strange the Dreamer is great for a book about siblings because there's a whole community of siblings living together. And then in Carceron, let's go ahead and use it for fashionable character. Let's see, that one's been used now. Let's go ahead and stick it as chapters have cliffhangers. And if you know Sanderson, you know he does cliffhangers very, very well. And if we keep on going down, Graceling, I guess we can use for inheritance. You know, Poe just tries to give away his inheritance to her because he loves her. And that was a cute moment. So yeah, I'll count it. Continuing down, Fountains of Silence. I really think that this one would work perfectly for a book about secrets because there are secrets that you only discover at the very, very end. Number 11. We have Anathem, which I have marked as working for high fantasy. It reads more like a futuristic science fiction, but in the beginning it does acknowledge that this is a fantasy setting with like aliens and different languages and different planets and cultures and customs and worlds. They just changed the vocabulary to make it more understandable for us Earthlings, I guess. Which is so hilarious to me because I read so much high fantasy, you'd think that the high fantasy prompt would be like a very clear-cut, this is high fantasy, this is where it fits. But, I guess the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Alright, let's check out the library book. Let's do book with a dedication since it seems to be the only one in its category. And now as we get to Aurora Burning, we've already done secrets, we've already done siblings, fashionable, cliffhangers, which means it only works for a survival story. It's getting a little dicey here. Wow. Okay, so Other Side of the Sky and Beyond the End of the World are part 1 and 2 of a series. I think if I use one of them for 7 Deadly Sins and the other one for mythology, that'll work out quite nicely. Now, the first book, the histories and stories they tell feel more like mythology, whereas in the second book, you discover some hidden truths as to where they originate from, which makes them a bit less mysterious and mythological. So I guess we'll go with that. That puts Other Side of the Sky as prompt number 34. And Beyond the End of the World, we'll go for 7 Deadly Sins, which is prompt number 16. Wahoo! I've got my first horizontal bingo! Alright, now we're getting to the books that I have started to read but haven't quite finished yet. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, from what I know, it definitely is not during the Roaring Twenties, not in Australia. I might use it for Down a Rabbit Hole because the characters kind of go down rabbit holes to each other's worlds. Published by Macmillan, it is imprinted afterwards. Before We Were Yours, again, I haven't finished this, so I'm not entirely certain about it, but let's see when the original timeline takes place. No! It takes place in 1939! Why? Is it published by Macmillan? Let's see, it's published by Ballantine Books. Let's see who they belong to. No, they're part of Random House Books. Oh gosh, this is gonna have to go into the doesn't fit any of the other prompts. I'm sure it fits some of the prompts that I've already filled. However, that's just how I'm going to interpret this. And since Anthropocene Reviewed starts with the Anthropocene Reviewed, we'll mark it as that. And that means I really have to push Scott. We have to finish that one this year because that works rather nicely. I DNF'd Time Traveler's Wife, so that's not going to count. And Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. Whew. Okay, so that one, I'll read it from my book club, but it doesn't look like it's actually going to fit any of the prompts, which is unfortunate. Let's see, I know I'm going to be reading number 15, Set in Australia for Ship of Brides. And I know that Secret Project number 4 by Brandon Sanderson will fit published in 2023, which means I need to read 3 more prompts for the year. I cannot believe this. I mean, granted, some of these books I haven't finished yet, but that means I only need to choose 3 more. I need Time in the Title, published by Macmillan, and takes place in the Roaring Twenties. Guys, this is so exciting. I love seeing things all filled out and pretty like this. I know that I have 1001 Nights hanging out down here. I did start to read this, but I don't think it looks like I'm going to finish it by the end of the year because I am taking it rather slow. And as it doesn't fit in any of the prompts, I think it's okay just to not count it. I am feeling so much better about my progress than I did before. I thought I still had like 17 prompts to fill, which was a bit overwhelming. But this is doable and this is fun. And I really hope that if you're doing the 52 book challenge this year, that you're finding it as fulfilling as I am. And if you're a type A book reader who just loves the puzzles of slotting things into place, I hope that you'll consider joining the 52 book challenge next year. We have like 4 confirmed prompts for next year, so you can kind of start planning ahead for those. But the new list should be dropping probably in November is when it dropped last year. It is rather exciting to be getting closer to the end of the year, meaning that there's only a couple videos left for the channel, and hopefully I will see you around for those. Peace, y'all. I love you.